Welcome to Parenting is Final Fantasy. I'm Drew Kreisman.
And I'm Ira Kreisman.
And on this show, we're going to flip the script around a little bit and have my brother ask me questions about being a dad. I was trying to think of some ways to make dad content. That sounds like such a corporate sentence.
Oh my good Lord. Well, you did promise months ago.
Indeed.
You're like, oh, I'm going to do episodes on what it's like to be a dad. I've got dad content coming, and nothing never came, so now we're doing this.
Yeah. A big part of that was because, every time I sat down to think about just generally talking about being a dad, there's simultaneously way too many things, and in the moment, nothing comes to mind, right? It's that
sure
thing.
Yeah.
And I think it's easier to talk about when people are asking you and you go, oh yeah, because sometimes it can all become one big jumbled thing. So, yeah, I figured this would also be a fun new manifestation of our various conversations on many, many things. So, not that we would ever over-intro a thing. Let's get right into it. Ira, what is your first... Now, the first one better be good. This is the first ever dad question here on whatever this is.
Well, I do think it's a good one, but mostly because it's kind.
Oh no.
I ask... So, my first question is, since your son was born early and your wife had a hard time of it, the first question is, how is everyone doing?
Oh, yeah, no, that's a great question. It definitely took several months, I think, for all of us, more them than me, but definitely all of us, to recover is maybe not even the best word, but get to a point where every day didn't feel like an emergency.
Right.
Yeah. That was hard for a while, for sure, for 2 or 3 months. And of course, we had that cranial thing afterwards, which didn't really end up being a thing, but it was scary for a month.
Well, and I'll tell you, one of our friends has a baby about the same age, had the cranial thing and had to wear that padded helmet. And I think is finally out of it. Baby didn't care. Not even a little bit. Totally fine.
They're resilient little things. It's kind of amazing.
It almost have to be. Jeez.
Right. Well, right. And I think that's one of the things that I'm sure most parents would tell you, that you have to learn, and yet is still almost impossible to learn, and you're constantly learning it, is that not every time the baby cries is an emergency. But those first couple of days, and for us it felt more like weeks and months, we worried so much, and so many things had gone differently or were more difficult than is the norm. And so I think, we just felt kind of stuck in that place where, like I said, you overreact to almost everything.
Sure.
And it's only been recently that we've started to go, okay, he can cry a little bit in his crib, and if we don't pick him up right away, he might self-soothe, right? And things like that. But not freaking yourself out over every little thing is a challenge.
Right. I can only imagine.
Sure. Yeah, and it is one of those obnoxious things that parents say all the time. It's like, until you've had a kid, you don't understand. And there's a certain amount of that that's absolutely true. There's a level of constant anxiety because you have to take care of this small person. They are literally incapable of taking care of themselves, right? And I, as somebody who am so used to communication, being a communicator, and being able to figure out and understand what's going on with people and talk out their issues with them and whatever else. Baby can't do any of those things. He hasn't said any words yet, and I don't know why he's crying. He might be hot, he might be cold, he might be hungry, it might be a diaper situation. It might not be related to anything. He might just be slowly realizing that reality is a weird confusing, sometimes cruel place. I don't know. I don't know why he's screaming. And a lot of times that for me, especially in the early going, was the hardest thing, of feeling like you've got to do something. You've got to get him a bottle. You've got to change his diaper. You got to change his onesie. You got to rock him. You got to do all the, and sometimes it's like, you just got to give him his moment and realize that too, which we're still terrible at, by the way. But yeah.
So his babbling, I have noticed in my interactions with him, does sound an awful lot like language, just not a language I know.
Sure.
There seems to be some purpose behind his babbling. Have you noticed that, or is that just my nephew is obviously the most brilliant nephew to have ever nephewed?
No, and again, as is my son. Oh wait, it's the same. Yeah, I do feel like that a lot of the times. I'm amazed by how expressive he is, at how many different facial expressions he makes that are so like. He does have this little frown. Sometimes he's just screaming, like I said, and you have no idea why. But sometimes he makes a little sad, frowny face, and you just go, "Oh my God, my little heart!" And it's, but it's clearly expressing an emotion. He's always smiled, and there are different. You can go on if one is so inclined. You can get into a grand debate on the internet or anywhere else in the science community about how early babies actually begin to smile at you or at things or as an expression of an emotion. Early on, a lot of times they just smile when they're gassy and they fart, and maybe fart jokes are the very first jokes then. I don't know. Maybe that's just like innately.
Sometimes it feels great. I gotta
Sure.
say, sometimes it's very important.
Yeah, right, exactly. But we've felt like, since before he left the hospital in those first 20 days, he was smiling at us and in response to things. And he's always been very expressive. So yeah, there are times, he'll be in his bassinet and he'll just, like you said, be babbling away, and his mother or I will say, "Oh, really?" And then he'll go, "Ah, yeah."
Right, exactly.
And just go, well, he didn't really say yeah, but he sure felt like he was affirming, like he's trying to have a conversation. He also just watches people when they talk. It feels like he wants to say something, and sometimes when he lets out one of those long strings of sounds, he'll give a big smile as though like, "See, I did a full sentence."
I made my point and everything.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah, I'm amazed by it. So I'm sure once he actually starts speaking words, it's going to get just mind-blowingly interesting.
So to cross over a bit, my other question.
Yeah.
Our podcasts until now have been largely about the art and media we enjoy and analyze. So I know you're still playing video games and watching movies and stuff, but what sort of new art and entertainment and media have you been, and I almost hate to use this word, consuming?
Ooh, what content am I consuming out there that the companies are offering up to us, consumers?
Specifically with the baby.
Yeah. Well, let's get into this a little bit, because this is a real life podcast, right? So in the early days, we just kind of would put on whatever and just pause it when he would cry. He did sleep a lot in the early days too, so we were still watching our Rings of Power, and a lot of that just stayed kind of normal. And then we would add Miss Rachel to it. Those of you who know Miss Rachel, I'm sure you know, and that's become a whole thing, right? But, and I think we talked about this a little bit with some of the video games we reviewed most recently. I definitely gravitated more toward easier to play and or slower games that I can play late at night that aren't action intensive or fast finger button presses, nothing like that. Strategy games, puzzle games, and anything with a pause button for sure. So there's definitely been, a shift in terms of that. luckily there have been a lot of cool old school RPGs that have dropped in the last couple of years, and so I found myself getting back into those because they provide that kind of space for you. And we talked about Unicorn Overlord, and now I'm playing Ayuden Chronicle, which is a spiritual successor to Suikoden that we're going to have to talk about at some point. But the other thing is that after the election, I have made an extreme conscious effort to cut out all political media. Now, I mean, we know lots of things are political. As we talk about, everything's political. But, right, all of the surface level, I stopped watching the news. Yeah. I've turned off all the political comedians. I don't watch Colbert or John Oliver anymore. I haven't watched an episode of SNL. All things that I did regularly before then, right? And I'm sure at some point I'll get back to those things. But for right now, especially with the baby, there's been a purposeful seeking out of positive and affirming and inspiring art. So we did a rewatch of Ted Lasso.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. We've been rewatching Next Gen. I think I've talked about that a little bit. Star Trek The Next Generation. There have been some great things. Skeleton Crew right now, the new Star Wars show on Disney Plus is something that we're really eating up. So there are new things, but we've also been kind of going back to some art that we know is affirming and inspiring. Not the West Wing at this particular moment in time.
Sure.
That might hurt too much. But Next Gen is like West Wing adjacent, where we're making the same arguments, but in space. So
right.
It's okay.
It's removed a little bit.
Right. But yeah, as far as, a lot of the gaming, it's just what can I do from, 10 to 11 o'clock at night when I'm exhausted. And so, I'm not sure I could play through Rebirth or Final Fantasy 16 right now, just because of the energy that it takes to keep your mind sharp enough to win battles and proceed, even to consume the stories. I don't have the emotional capital for Final Fantasy 16 right now.
I've experienced that with certain shows that you have recommended in the past.
Yeah.
I wish I could draw an example to front of mine. It's like, it sounds great, but it also sounds exhausting.
Right.
And I don't always have whatever it is you need to do that. Is there anything that Lachlan seems to enjoy? I mean, you mentioned Ms. Rachel. I know the name.
Right.
We had my other sister-in-law's kid over a little while ago, and we watched Bluey, which I also know from TikTok. Right. Is there anything like that you're getting it? Are there any children's programming deserving of a Final Fantasy Weekly style deep dive?
Ms. Rachel is great. And the brief explanation, I will say, it'll destroy the inside of your brain after a while, and there'll come a point where you hate it if it's on all the time. But for anyone who doesn't know, Miss Rachel had a young child during the pandemic who was having some learning development issues. Nothing huge and major, but just some speech things. And she went on the internet to see if there were some resources and was surprised to find that there aren't many. And ended up making, and I can't remember in the early days, and if I'm getting some of this wrong, somebody told me this, and we've been watching Ms. Rachel ever since. So if someone out there wants to correct me, please do. But this is my understanding, is that she's just started making these videos for her kid and for other kids. And I think she was a teacher, like a preschool teacher already. And it's, a lot of it's the songs, she sings Wheels on the Bus and Old MacDonald and all that stuff. But they do a lot of language specific, trying to help you learn things. And they do sign language. It's very inclusive. It's very visual, very built toward development and growing. And although he's, still too young to be learning to say anything, I still love having it on around him because he does seem to respond to the big high-pitched voices that I can do for him sometimes, and sometimes it's fun. But as an adult, sometimes you don't have the energy for all of that, right? Let Ms. Rachel do all of that, and he does seem to enjoy it. So there's something on PBS Kids called Daniel Tiger that we've only watched an episode or two of. It's something Mom had heard about and recommended. It's on PBS, so that shouldn't surprise you that Mom would have heard about it. And we got to look into Bluey. I have found several things. Like, I just went and Googled one day Peter and the Wolf, because I remember that from when we were kids. And there's a YouTube, like 15-minute long YouTube video of Peter and the Wolf narrated by David Bowie.
Excellent.
It's like, why would I not want my kid to have that, right?
Right. So, you mentioned PBS. Any Sesame Street in your life?
Haven't done the Sesame Street yet. So that's something I think we definitely will want to look at and get into. I've got to train the algorithms, I think, on YouTube to recognize more than Miss Rachel, because she's got so many videos.
So the reason I asked that is I wonder, because that's you mentioned Peter and the Wolf. Yeah, that was something we did as kids. Sesame Street. I'm wondering what other little kid things, whatever media influenced us as kids. That, I mean, he's not going to be ready for X-Men the animated series
X-Men and Power Rangers just yet. Yeah,
it's going to be a bit. Yeah. But
I mean, kind of. We've already got him watching Lord of the Rings and stuff. Last night, he fell asleep to Lord of the Rings, and then I had to turn. I did not want him to wake up during the scene when all of the orcs were swarming him in the mines of Moria. Right. I was like, I'm gonna change it over to 101 Dalmatians or something.
Yeah. Oh, that's one we watched a lot too.
Mm-hmm. Those early Disney movies, those things I'm definitely going to show them. We did, actually, you and I have got to talk about the animated Robin Hood movie and how just explicitly anti-fascist it is without me.
That little rabbit boy says out loud, death to tyrants.
Yeah. First line Robin Hood says in the movie is, "Rob, we never rob. We just borrow a bit from those who can afford it."
Exactly.
So yeah, I'm showing him that kind of propaganda.
Excellent. Well done.
Yeah.
Disney propaganda, honestly.
Right.
Anti-union prick.
We took him to the Maurice Sendak exhibit at
That's right.
the museum when you all were over for the Thanksgiving, and that was a lot of fun. So
he slept through most of it. But
he did.
There you go.
He loves sleeping in the stroller when he's out and about. Not so much in his crib or bassinet or when we're home in general, but when we're out, he sleeps.
Attaboy.
I know, right? Thank you all for listening, and if this is your first time, I do hope you will consider subscribing to the Patreon page for $1 a month or more if you feel like it. It always helps us out a little bit, but these are going to be the types of conversations going on more now here at DC Productions as we continue to move most of the nerdy video game, movie, TV talk over to the Final Fantasy weekly pages on the Patreon and the YouTube as well. So if you think you might enjoy these more family/life-oriented conversations with my brother, please give a subscribe. Other than that, I can only ever ask that you continue to be absolutely awesome out there. You know that I will continue to be absolutely Drew Kreisman in here. And until next time, I will see you out there in the world.